Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to an incredible duo, Ange and Marty, the founders of the A-Life in Australia. These two are truly passionate about movement and have spent over a decade exploring and sharing the wonders of what our bodies are capable of. From their early days traveling the world as freestyle dancers, where they first met, to taking multiple yoga trainings in the US, mastering Pilates rehab techniques, and developing their own strength and mobility practice, Ange and Marty have turned mindful movement into a lifestyle. In year 2017, Ange, an osteopath with over 10 years of experience, decided to shift her focus from fixing people to empowering them to move well and feel good in their own bodies. This is how the A-Life was born, both online and in person, where movement is accessible, fun, and most importantly, safe. Their philosophy emphasizes quality over quantity, encouraging a sustainable and injury-free approach to fitness. As we had a long conversation, we created 2 episodes out of this recording. Therefore, in part 1, we cover some fascinating topics. We talk about the critical role of inflammation in the body and why feeling good and being strong is more important than chasing superficial goals like looking younger. We dive into the topics of adrenal fatigue, thyroid, burnout, and how certain types of exercise can either help or hinder your hormonal health. Ange and Marty also share their insights on the impact of movement on hormones and the difference between bad movement and high-quality movement. We finish part 1 with a conversation on movement variability, creating a movement lifestyle, and how distributing movement throughout the day can positively transform your health. This is just the beginning, so be sure to tune in for part 2 coming out in 2 weeks, where we will continue exploring more strategies for building a sustainable, movement-focused lifestyle. You won't want to miss it. And now, let's dive into part 1 of my conversation with Ange and Marty from the A-Life. You are listening to Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast, where we explore different ways to boost our well-being, live a more fulfilling life, and protect our planet. Join me as I chat with inspiring people and professionals from all over the world, uncovering strategies for improving our lifestyles and nurturing our precious planet. I am Juan, and this podcast is proudly brought to you by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, my digital training company that cares about your career and personal development. I am passionate about making the world a better place, so if you share my enthusiasm, this show is for you. Together, we can steer towards a healthier, happier life while leaving a positive footprint on our beautiful Earth. Join me as we explore how being healthy, happy, and caring for our planet are all connected. Hello, Ange, and hello, Marty from the A-Life, and welcome to Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having us on,
Thanks
Juan.
for having us. So excited.
So happy that you had the time to meet today. Well, one of the things that I always ask my guests at the beginning is usually the first question. How did you meet and how did you get to establish the A-Life?
Wow, we met, how long ago has it been? 2006 about, so it's quite a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
We actually met through dancing. We were in the dance circuit in Melbourne, Australia, freestyle dance specifically, like, street dance, hip hop, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's how we met.
Feels like a lifetime
it feels
ago.
like a lifetime
But we
ago.
sort of met through movement, just a different expression to what we do now.
So pretty much, we met through there, but at that time you were studying osteopathy already, so she'd already been, I think she had 1 year left when we met, and I remember she told me she wanted to be an osteopath. I'm like, what is that? I have no idea what that is. And at the time, all I was doing was kind of like focusing on dance and not what to do afterwards. So, once she started to teach me a little bit more about what osteopathy is, I started to really get interested in kind of, later down the track of like, what they actually do. It's like, healing through holistic. Well, you explain it better.
Well,
so.
you started getting like once I finished practicing, as well as doing osteopathy, I studied Pilates. Was the first thing, kind of the first movement modality I studied. And then you started getting interested in movement or like fitness, because I guess neither of us really come from a fit, like yes we dance, but that never counted really as exercise.
It was more of a creative outlet for us because to be honest, I actually hated exercise. I remember when I first met her, I thought exercising is just for insecure juice heads sort of thing. I'm like, that's not me. I remember at the time it was the fashion for back when we started dating, like all these guys would wear the skimpiest singlet tops where the neck part came all the way down here, and they were like really muscling. Like, I hated that look, and these are the guys who just want to go there. I hate the gym, so I had this like toxic kind of relationship with it. But then it wasn't until I started, working as a tradesman, as an electrician, I started to feel the need to get stronger. I'm like, I'm actually not a very strong person. I may be mobile and flexible because of my dancing. But I noticed I actually wasn't very strong. And I remember Ange goes to me, well, you need to build some strength. Why don't you try doing this push-up challenge? And this is like nearly, around the time we just met. So 16 years ago. So I'm like trying to do this, stupid push-up challenge. I'm like, I've nearly done 100 push-ups when my arms were barely even bending.
Terrible form.
Terrible form, calling it a push-up. I'm like, but at the same time, it kind of got me interested. I'm like, well, I can't just be strong with push-ups. I kind of get strong everywhere else. So I'm started looking on, like, this is YouTube starting to become popular. And there was this guy named Ido Portal that I liked what he was doing because he would do some things that was related to, because he did some dance as well himself. He had a capoeira background, and I got so interested in that, and I kind of tried to copy, but I didn't have the strength or anything. So it's like, you know what, I'm just going to do what I know how to do. And then from then, we kind of just like, we discovered other modalities.
But we started studying. We were very lucky because one of Ido Portal's mentors lived in Melbourne, and we didn't really know much about it. And yes, we went in thinking that we were going to really learn like breaking, which is like the only form of movement at that time we were familiar with, breakdancing. And yeah, it was like really eye-opening because immediately like showed, even though we were active, how many limitations that we had in starting to have like what they would say is like a true holistic movement practice. Like we were exposed to handstands and moving along the floor and crawling and hanging and pulling and some martial arts work and coordination and things like that. And there were things that we were naturally quite good at because
the coordination side, because the dancer was
because of the dance.
That's what I loved about the classes, because everybody was good at something, and then yet everybody had something they needed to work on too. So
so that's kind of where we just started studying that together. We would go, the classes were like 2-hour classes a couple of times a week, and they'd end up being 3 hours, but we would do that. And then at the same time I was treating as an osteopath, and I don't know, I just started getting a little bit sick of just the same people coming. Like I really wanted to help people, and people would come for a headache or a back pain, and yes, they would always say, oh, you've got magic hands, I need you to do that exact thing you did last time, I'm booking again in 2 weeks. And that was great, like for like a minute. Financially, yeah, that's great, because someone wants to come and have a recurring booking every 2 weeks to you. But I was sort of like, I'm not helping people. Like no one's looking healthier that's coming in to see me. They're relying on me. Like a lot of the time they weren't changing anything of like, even to get them to do one exercise, they would come and be like, I didn't do it. And then, but do that thing on me again. And I was just, I got to a few years practicing, and I just got kind of burnt out and over it. Like I wasn't kind of reassessing what I actually wanted to do. So I didn't really quit, but I stopped, and we actually we moved to Paris for a year at that time.
It was funny because around that time she went, this is when we were still dancing before the whole learning the Ido thing. She went to China to go to this dance competition, and she met all these French dancers, and then she's like, we got to go to France, we got to live in Paris.
Well, I just thought, because I was a bit sick of osteopathy, and I just thought, why don't I spend a year dancing while I'm still I was in my late 20s, and thought that could be just a reassessment. And actually at the time I was dealing with a lot of my own health issues. So,
That's right.
well, I had physical issues. Like I had Achilles tendonitis in both ankles. That was like debilitating. Like I was wearing these like high top shoes at the time, and Martin would tape my ankles.
She went to see like the top physio when it
I saw the
comes
top
to
physio who would do like this trigger therapy thing and everything. I was
taped up your
doing
feet.
all these things. And at the same time, I had a lot of gut issues. So I was getting like kind of bouts of gastro every few months. Yeah, my stomach was just not in a good place. And anyway, I started looking into more about gut health and learning about gut health at the same time. And actually, while I was overseas, I did study integrative nutrition. I studied like a holistic kind of nutrition, and I really hadn't done any sort of that kind of study before. So it was very eye-opening. And first I addressed my gut health, and the first, like literally like a switch, as soon as I addressed the inflammation in my body, my Achilles tendonitis like disappeared. Like couldn't even work, and it just like disappeared. And I was like, what happened? Like no one, everyone's been treating the area, but then I looked at it from an inflammatory point of view and that got to the root cause. And so that was really eye-opening, especially when I was treating and getting very like stuck in that we weren't really helping people. Anyway, fast forward, we ended up actually when we came back, we started, so the A-Life was actually a blog at the start when I was traveling, which was more like holistic health kind of blog.
It was really meant for your nutrition, really.
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of life and
lifestyle.
All the factors of health. And then when we got back, because we were like diving more and more into movement as well, we started the A-Life as a studio, which was, we had a movement studio and then we had a clinic as well, which was closer to like alignment, and we were getting closer.
She was still treating osteopathy.
But I was I still had to like to make the money to pay the rent of this place. I had to go back to see patients, and I was kind of going back into that same old pattern, and then at the same time though, we started strength and mobility classes, which we loved. Like we loved helping people. Like we had rings in the place and balance beams, and we started like looking more into, I think it was at that time we got into like more barefoot living as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And we just started more peeling back, helping people move better and helping people understand their body better and get more awareness of their body and things like that. And anyway, so we were sort of closer to it, but we had a lot of stress running that studio. For us, like we weren't really teaching. We did our own classes, but we had a big team to manage.
Yeah, we had an instructor teaching all that strength, mobility stuff, but at the same time, it was something that we were very familiar with ourselves. And rather than Ange teaching every class, he would teach that one, and then I was managing the studio and all the instructors, and that was a very
and it was a lot of stress. And that's the other thing is like we kind of slipped back into stress, and the effect of stress on your body. And we're always like really trying to find this, like we love our work, but we also want to love our whole, like for us, there's no really work-life balance. But like now, how we live, it all blurs, but we love it all. And so then there was a lot of stress. So actually during COVID, during the lockdowns in Melbourne, we had really long lockdowns. So our studio was probably closed for about 9 months. And in total over the time. And in that time, when we closed, we started moving our classes online. And because A-Life was actually a blog initially, I always wanted to start an online business. It was kind of something that I always had on my list of things, something I wanted to do, but I always thought it was fitness was a flooded market. And just wasn't the right time. And then when
we had a taste of how it worked.
What's that?
Online, how online
worked. So when the lockdowns happened,
we actually enjoyed it.
We thought, like, I literally looked up on YouTube how to start a TikTok or something. And I was like, we've got time, we're at home, let's start putting content out. And we started sharing how we move. So everything we teach is exactly how we move ourselves. And we started putting it out there, and literally, like, I think a couple of months in, we had a video get 2 million views or something. And it just like went nuts. And then I shared it, I think I shared it to Pinterest and it got 8 million views and it was a hip mobility video. And then we were kind of like, okay, so this fitness stuff that we do seems to hit a little bit differently and is maybe a bit different to what's out there or something people are looking for. So then we just grew it. Yeah, we started our online memberships. Now we run 2 online memberships. We also mentor other businesses to run online memberships. Recently, I gave birth to my baby girl, who's 1 year old, and we now have a pre and postpartum movement course. And that's kind of the A life now.
That's amazing.
We never thought could actually do this.
Yeah.
That's so amazing, that story, especially that because as you said before, you were getting all those patients and you were trying to treat them with all those pains and aches that they had in their body. But you always just felt that you were trying to repair them all the time, but you were never addressing the root cause. And now you're really getting into the root cause. You're showing them how to move properly. You're showing them how to use their body in a way that they do not have to get to the point that they need to get those aches and pains taken away by somebody else, by a professional. Yeah. So that is really good. And the other plus side that I see, that you can really now leverage all of your knowledge through that online platform that you have, because before you only had the possibility to do those courses in your gym, and now you really have the possibility to reach so many millions of people out there in different countries and different locations. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I would say half our students are overseas and probably half our students are Australian. So it's wild now to think that we're actually helping people anywhere in the world. But it's also when to do an online, like learn class, workshop, course, anything, it's easy to book an appointment and go to an osteo and get them to do something on you, but to actually go and actually do the thing that's going to make you feel better or be more proactive, you have to be ready to address the root cause, and not everyone is ready for that. So we're sort of attracting a different kind of person now.
I think that's where online was better, because obviously in person it is kind of like Angela said, it's so tough. Every client she had in person, she can show them moves that they can do to make sure that they can be better, and then almost kind of not see her. But they're going to be like, no, I'd rather spend all that money and then just come see you. I'd rather not do the work. I'd rather spend the money. So it's kind of strange to us. So
it's strange. Sometimes I even think that people are like a little bit masochist, so that you say, I want to get that pain at some point of time so I can just go to somebody to fix me again. Yeah, it's like, okay, why do you want to do that? Don't you just want to avoid having just no pain at all ever?
So strange, but
it's so strange. Yeah, but I know that most of the people would really wish that would never happen, so that they could always be healthy, they could always have a mobile, flexible, and resilient body so that they don't have to have any kind of issues. And the other thing which I picked from what you just mentioned that was so interesting about how when you changed also your gut health, that your inflammation in your body reduced. And I think that also is one of the root causes of so many aches and pains that people might have in their body. Because I remember before I turned plant-based, I also had a lot of aches and pains everywhere in my body. And I was always going to an acupuncturist who was doing traditional Chinese medicine. And he would do a really good job doing those acupunctures. I would have no problems later in the shoulder, but then next week I would have it on the other shoulder. And then he would do acupuncture there, and then it would be fine, but then I would suddenly have pain in my knee. He would do acupuncture there, and then I would have pain in my hip. So it was just like somewhere in my body was some kind of aches and pains. Yeah, it's like moving target.
Yeah, and it's funny because practitioners could easily say, I love acupuncturists and they're so useful, but I find like any practitioner can actually say this, is like, you might say, I've got shoulder pain, and they say, I can treat that. But it's like, but you haven't taken in the big picture, because like there's so many things, especially in online, there's so many things that can cause it. There's never one thing that's going to fix it. If anyone says that, I feel like they're lying.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And that's why it is that holistic view. Yeah, and that's something that one really has to address. So when I changed the way how I was eating, and I just switched to plant-based, that's when I saw that great part of my inflammation in my body just disappeared. And then on top of that, later on, I started grounding more. I was going more barefoot, so I was more connected to the earth. And there again, it started reducing even more inflammation from my body. So today I have absolutely, even though I'm getting close now to my 50s, and I'm still training, I think, harder than before, and I don't have any aches and pains in my body. And the way how I recuperate it, I feel it's even faster than the way how I used to recuperate when I was a teenager. And it's truly amazing. Yeah.
It's funny that we hear those stories a lot, and it's never a magic pill. It's literally you are
the daily work.
You're intentionally moving. You're intentionally trying to better yourself. I'm similar to you where, like I said to you, I hated exercise and dance. Though it was physical, I don't think it was helping, my joints actually getting better, or, I never really had those
The awareness
joint pains.
wasn't there.
Well, the awareness wasn't there, but then it's funny, when I actually started strength work, when I actually started working on that, like everything feels easy to me. Like, so at times I'll still do some tech work, like where I'll do art installation and all that, and we're carrying these big projectors, and it's so funny that one of the rules that they have in the workplace is anything over 15 kilos, you need another person to do it. I'm like, almost every day I'll throw a 20-kilo kettlebell over my head sort of thing. It's like, nothing to brag about. It's just something I do consistently. And it just makes everyday jobs easy. And every time someone says, oh, you need help to do that, I'm like, well, look, if it's over 50 kilos, obviously, but in most cases, it's just made everything so much easier to do. And I'm loving it.
I think sometimes it's easy to forget how good you actually can feel. I think if you're always feeling kind of shit and you're always feeling kind of tired or always a bit stressed and you haven't felt good in a long time, it's easy to just be like, oh, that felt good like years ago, therefore it must just be because I'm old. And so we get that a lot, is just like, it's just age, it's just because I'm 30 or just because I'm 40.
Till you get to this age more.
Or and it's just like, no, that's actually not true. Like, if you actually do the work, I think it's easy just to not know how good we're designed to feel.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was just telling my wife about that a couple of days ago, because about half a year ago, we were so busy integrating new clients into our business that we barely had time to move around. We had barely time to train. So I was just doing the bare minimum, just the maintenance, just to keep my body moving, but not something where I was getting stronger. So I did notice after half a year, I was getting weaker strength-wise. And then I started now about 3 months ago to train again. And I can really feel now how my body's getting stronger. But then, as you said, everyday tasks somehow feel so easy. I'm like, I was asking my wife, hey, what's wrong with our garbage? Like, every time I have to walk out with the garbage, if I think back a couple of months ago, I was saying, wow, our garbage is like super heavy. Yeah, I really am struggling. Sometimes I have to even switch arms, from carrying that garbage bag until I get to the bin. And now I'm just like walking to the bin. I'm thinking, wow, I felt like if I'm carrying nothing in my hand, I'm like thinking, wow, that's amazing, because I barely feel it when I carry it now. And it's just like simple things like that. Just taking out the garbage could be so easy because you're just getting a stronger body. Or if you're just helping somebody set up a party and you want to move the table around, everything just seems super easy.
Which is this past weekend.
That's a big why. It's a big why for us. Like, everyone has their values of like the motivation behind what keeps you consistent. And for us, being like helpful humans is high on our values. Like, we've been in incidents before where there's been a guy who was on a wheelchair and he was in an accident, and we were able to help him, like carry him up off the thing. Another lady, when we went hiking, she fractured her wrist and couldn't get up, and we could help move her. Actually, another one, there were floods in New South Wales,
and kind of north of Australia,
and we volunteered ourselves for a week to go like move rubbish out people's houses. Like, to us, like that's like a huge why of why we want to be strong, mobile, feel good, and take care of ourselves so we can actually be useful humans.
To others.
Absolutely. And life is going to be throwing things at you, and you will be able to manage that much, much easier than anybody else who's not yet at that fitness level, of mobility, strength, flexibility. Yeah. Time for a quick break to mention that the sponsor of this podcast is Wave Business Excellence Footprint, a digital training company deeply committed to your career development, personal growth, and the well-being of our precious planet. Dive into a wealth of knowledge with over 20 courses available on our website, www.wave-bef.com. Tailored for both managers and employees aspiring to become tomorrow's leaders. Tell me a bit about your thoughts on looking younger versus feeling younger.
I guess it all comes down to your intention behind, again, like why you move. For us, like, it's just a mindset. It's literally like, if you move the way your body is designed, you move in a way that feels good for you, you will get the body that you were meant to have. You know, you'll get the perfect body for you. That might not look like the fitness magazine version of the perfect body, because I think we've been socially conditioned to be like, this is the thing that we're meant to aim for. But there's an overlap anyway in how you feel versus how you radiate, but it comes back to the intention behind it. You know, one is kind of like, you know, I used to do a lot of kind of HIIT workouts and those kind of working out to burn calories as the motivation, and it just does not last long. That motivation will last like 2 weeks, and then you're like,
to do it once
I don't know if it's working, I don't know, this is like making me feel negative. It's a very negative kind of mindset behind it, and then you let yourself down, you miss a week, and then you beat yourself up, and you go through this whole cycle. So it becomes down to like exercise and movement is like a punishment for your body, versus I want to move and be strong and mobile purely to feel my best, to be a useful human, to be resilient, and
to make everyday tasks easy.
Yeah.
Or new physical tasks.
to be able to like play with my kids and get on the floor with, you know, no problem, and be able to do that for the next 30 years. So the intention then is different. And so you're then working at moving your body purely to feel good. And like, I think sometimes we're like, is that even a reason to exercise? Like, that's not what we've been told. That's why you exercise. But yeah, we kind of want to flip that narrative and be like, yeah, you can actually do that. You know, we see a lot of women who come to us and they've already done the adrenal fatigue, burnout sort of style of exercise, and their thyroid is already burnt out and everything, and their hormones and things have been affected because the body reads stress, whether you're doing a HIIT workout or whether you've read a stressful text message, your body is reading it the same. And so, you know, actually seeing what kind of stress am I putting on my body when I exercise as well. So if you have a stressful job and then you go to, you know, there's nothing wrong with CrossFit, but you then do your CrossFit classes that are really high intensity, and you're doing that a couple of times a week on top of your stressful job, plus getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and working back late. I mean, you're just giving yourself burnout. So it's like, comes back to, are you doing that to feel good, or are you doing that to look good or to look young? And is it really going to serve your long-term why, if that's what it is? So it's just really reevaluating. I say that a lot because it's about reevaluating your intention behind why you move.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And I think as soon as you focus on how do you feel and that you're starting to feel better, I think that will reflect automatically on how your body will look as a result. Yeah, and
100%.
So if you can move in a certain way, if you can crawl, if you can jump over things, if you can do all of that, your body will start looking that way as well. Because I remember when I was training, when I was a teenager, I was more like into this bodybuilding type of training where you go to the gym and then you do like one day some body part, the next day the next body part, and you always increase the weights as much as you can. And so it was just the classical way of training, like what you see on the bodybuilding magazines. But then I realized that I was really getting stiff everywhere, and I have lots of like, I was not able to move so well. And I have to like, I don't know, just tying my shoelace was already like, whoa, you know, that's like so far away, my shoes from my arms. And then there was one situation when I was in school and the boy said, hey, let's do some push-up competition. And I was thinking to myself, well, I do a lot of bench press and I do a lot of weight on the bench press. So I'm sure those push-ups are going to be super easy. And I've, of course, never done that many push-ups before. So we went down on the floor and we started doing push-ups. And I was like, I think I did only like maybe 6 or so. And he was doing like almost 20. And I'm like, whoa, you know, how is that possible? You know, you don't go to the gym, you don't do any heavy lifting, and you're doing like 20 push-ups. And I'm here, the one lifting those heavy weights, doing the bench press, and I cannot even do 6 of them. But that really made me like reevaluate, am I making my body really stronger by doing all that heavy lifting in the gym? And I noticed that I was only able to lift that amount of weight if I was using a specific bench in a specific angle in a specific way. Mm-hmm. And if I moved the angle a little bit, or if I changed the bench, then I didn't have that strength anymore. So I noticed that I'm only conditioning my body to be strong in a specific position. But if I want all my muscles to act in coordination with all the others, like a team, and then it's somehow they're not able to communicate with each other because I only was specifically training one muscle at a time. So then that that's where I realized that actually doing full body weight training and all of that type of movement that both of you are showing in your programs, that is really bringing like a unity in your body. Every single muscle is speaking with each other and you're all working as a team. So that is really giving you an overall strength. Yeah, much, much stronger than if you can just do one specific exercise at one specific position.
Are you good?
No, I was just gonna say, look, there's a place for it, but the difference with bodybuilding is like you said, you're isolating to build a particular body part, and I think that's the problem. Is like you said, they don't work in coordination or in unison with each other, so that's why doing those everyday tasks doesn't necessarily make it easier.
It's the classic weightlifter who picks up a pencil and does his back.
She had one of those patients where, he's very strong, and he said, and Ange's like, so how did your back go? And he's like, oh, I think I went to pick up my phone or something like that, and that's how his back went on him.
yeah,
but
exactly.
It's that whole, like, you get injured in ranges that you don't train. If your body has never been there, and in life, like, we're 3D beings in a 3D world. Like, if you go to twist and reach and picks up something heavy and you've never actually been into that, exposed your body to that range, it's likely that it's going to freak out because your body wants to keep you safe, and it's going to be like, whoa, you've never done that. So then you get the neck spasm or the back spasm.
That's right. That was a big eye-opener for me, and also what you just explained right now. I'm sure that's also a big eye-opener for my listeners as well, because a lot of people are just sold that, the only way to get healthier and better is just by going to the gym and just doing the regular programs that you see out there. And that's one of the things which I also now would like to ask you, because you spoke about your adrenals, that you can also fatigue your adrenals by putting so much stress to your body. And perhaps the topic hormones. Can movement also help people balance their hormones?
It's interesting because there's definitely, I think now, especially women, when it comes to hormones, are starting to change the way, like we've been told that, you train this many times a week, you do it the same thing every month, you be consistent. But as actually now, you can actually train in sync with your cycle, for example, or train in sync with, like we were talking about with stress. Like if you have a lot of stress happening in the next few weeks, maybe you've got something really busy at work, maybe that's not the time to then like pump and like hit your PBs at the gym. Maybe that's the time where you do some yoga, or you just train for maintenance during that time. So it's about like taking into consideration the holistic, like we've been talking about, the holistic picture. Everyone's got a different hormone, but history, whether they've had thyroid issues, hormonal issues. Like I had PCOS. That was one of my other health problems back when I said I had gut issues. At that time, I hadn't had a period for 2 years, and I literally just didn't do anything about it. I didn't really even know. I didn't address any stress in the body. I didn't address my gut.
You know what to do.
Yeah, and it's like everybody's got like different things happening in their life, different injuries, different chronic issues, different lifestyle that you need to consider. And it's about finding a movement practice that's going to be conducive with all those things. So hormones is just another thing in that picture that, you can actually train and take into consideration that into your training to find what's going to work best for your body, and then try it and see, is it in 6 months? Is it actually working for you? You don't want to do it like change straight away. Like, we were talking about training to feel good. It's not like necessarily in like 2 weeks, you're going to be like, do I feel good? And no, actually, this is sort of like, it doesn't quite look like that. Getting better and getting stronger and more mobile is going to not look so linear.
It kind of just happens almost.
But yeah, in a few months, you should be able to reflect and also be able to drop the ego enough to be like, oh, this is actually this weight training thing that, bodybuilding, let's say you're doing that, I'm actually feeling stiff in my joints, or I'm actually getting a recurring neck problem, or actually I'm feeling like really tired, and if the only thing to get my energy back up is to exercise, that's interesting because my body should be doing that itself. And actually asking those questions, I think sometimes we don't reflect enough and check in with ourselves and then be willing to change our practice. Our practice has a lot of ebbs and flows. We've just got a 1-year-old now. And I can tell you in the last year, it's like the least amount of strength we have ever done in like our whole life.
We're definitely not.
We're trying.
We're definitely not getting PBs and stuff.
No, but that's okay because we plan on doing this for the next 50 years.
Exactly.
So a month here on there doesn't really matter to us, like, because, you know, we always keep our movement practice. We always keep an inconvenient life to stay active.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's always going to be a base level of movement, but it's just taking in what I think when it comes to, if you've got any hormonal issues, if you've got any stress issues, chronic health issues, you need to take them into consideration and movement in together in the whole picture.
Okay, that's really good because I think that already changes the perspective of how many people were programmed. Yeah, because many think, oh, no pain, no gain. So that's really not the mindset to have, where you just have to, you know, go there and just bash your body in that workout. And you say, okay, I didn't sleep much last night. My kid had me, you know, awake for a long time. Sleep, yeah.
Big one.
And on top of that, I just try to really bash my body because no pain, no gain is my motto. And at the end of the day, I don't think that's the way your body will thank you. And then you start wondering, why am I just getting these aches and pains? Then probably you're just also increasing your chances of having inflammation in your body. And it's just that vicious cycle. Yeah.
There's a time and place for it, but like, you know, to be always doing it that way, I reckon that what we've felt, that's where kind of people hit that brick wall and the aches and pains come in.
It's only going to last so long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, not all the time.
Yeah. And one of the things I noticed when I switched then more to the body weight type of training, it's all about then at the end of the day how I felt my body. The funny thing is that I did not even feel my body anymore because my body just felt like if it would be a feather. I didn't feel any aches or pains. I didn't feel anything. I just felt like a ninja. Yeah, I was just like I could just go anywhere and go over any obstacle. I didn't even feel it. I was in my body because it was so light. Yeah, it was just like a feather. I was just like floating over the ground, and that was the feeling where I said, "Wow, that's such an amazing feeling." To know that I just could transport my body anywhere effortlessly. Yeah.
How cool is that? Because like we feel the same way. I mean, I remember being terrified of heights. I still am to this day, but because now I'm more confident in like getting down from heights, for example, now, because working in all strength and mobility, it just, like you said, it makes everything easier. And I feel like, oh, I can actually do this. It's given us the confidence to do it. And same with you. So.
Yeah. Amazing. And from your perspective, is there such a thing as a bad movement? And is there such a thing as higher quality movement? How do you define those two?
Well, I would see it. Like I'm always coming with the approach. It really comes down to how you resonate with it, and if it feels like it's something you need. Because definitely we have got restrictions somewhere, and different practices can better your movement practice, and you just got to be open to be able to do it. And if it feels good to you and if it resonates with you, definitely do it. So I personally am never one to say, oh, don't do that because I think it's bad. It's always about in good form and looking out for your joints and moving within your range. I don't think any movement practice is bad per se.
Yeah, I always say any movement is better than no movement. So like we kind of have types of movement that we're like, oh yeah, like that's good that you're moving, but you could be spending that time doing something like that's a bit more better, but it's better than doing nothing. Yeah. So like, if you're walking, for example, walking I think is kind of overrated and underrated. Like it's underrated because I feel like it's just such an amazing practice, good for your pelvic floor. It's a single leg movement. You get incidental exercise, you get your level 2 cardio, so many benefits of foot mechanics, of walking. But at the same time, people use it as a cop-out. Like I used to be treating patients, I'd be like, oh, what do you do for exercise? And they're like, oh yeah, I walk a lot. And I'm like,
to work, I walk far.
Like
I'm very fit. And then Ange would be like, okay, so let's assess your mobility. And it was pretty bad.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily move your whole body in every direction, for example. Yeah. And it's same with riding your bike. Like a lot of people will walk and ride your bike and say, yeah, I exercise a lot. I'm very fit. And like, that's great. But if you actually think about the position that your body's in riding a bike, you're in a lot of flexion. Your neck is kind of in this weird extension position. Your butt's tucked under. So you're often like clenching your posterior pelvic floor and your glutes are not really working there. It's a lot of tight hips. If you've got tight hips and then you're a crazy bike rider, you're going to get even tighter hips mostly. So, it's not that bike riding is bad. We love bike riding, But you know,
that's the only thing
if that's
you
the
do.
only thing you do, then, you know, maybe that could be a bit of a problem. So, yeah, I kind of feel like we always talk about movement variability. So, you know, exposing your body to different movements, being open to like sucking at movements when you first start. Like,
We
and
started rock climbing, we're pretty bad.
yeah, we've been started rock climbing recently, and like we are not great rock climbers.
Well, we can, because once you get to the more difficult ones, it comes down to like those little grip strength.
But they're very swift. We're not swift.
Yeah, and they're very swift. we kind of, and that's the thing. We rely on the strength that we have to get up, rather than you'll have, and it's amazing to see, because you'll see these like petite individuals where they would look like a librarian and don't do anything physical, get up with such grace over the wall.
It's really cool.
They make me look like, oh my God, I'm the weakest person there is.
We muscle our way through it. But we're willing to like start from, have that beginner mindset, have that openness and be like, I'm just going to like be a complete beginner at this and feel really like, crap, you know, not uncoordinated, weak, whatever it is at the start, but be consistent and slowly improve. So I also don't really think there's any bad movement, but I do think that there's obviously types of movement. If you want to work on your strength and joints and all the things, there's definitely some things where you get more bang for your buck on.
So movement variability, and basically explore ranges that you wouldn't normally go into in a way that's where you are at the moment and like safe for you, before really going bonkers on it.
Exactly. And I think that the body has so many different articulations and so many different angles that you should really explore all those different ranges of movement that you have, because if you're going to do the same movement every day and you don't do the other 90% of the movement that your body is able to do, then as I say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And then you start just having restrictions in that other ranges of motions that you have never been using because you just never go that direction.
No, that's so true. And this is why everything's made easier for us. It's like, you know, any physical activity.
When you've got that baseline.
Exactly.
It's like you can challenge that range, you'll be fine.
And people are saying, oh, we're living in a modern world, so everything's being so automated, like you don't even have to open the boot of your car anymore because you just have to press on a button. You don't have to, put down your shutters because it's all electronic, so you don't have to do that movement anymore. So at the end, you're just robbing your body away from all that nutritious movement that you would be giving to it in a natural, I would say, in a natural world. But you're just restricting more and more movement because everything is being automated for you. Everything is taken away from your movement that you would normally be doing.
And that's like usually like such a good way for people who even don't really like to exercise. Just make your life inconvenient and, you know, developing more of a movement lifestyle. Just, you know, simple things like when, you know, one of the bits I missed out in our stories when we came back from Paris, we moved into an apartment, and one of the first things I did was chop the legs off our dining table.
by her mom.
My mum gave me a dining table and I chopped the legs off the dining table. I made Marty do it. Bought cushions so that every meal we sat on the floor, and like, my mum wasn't happy, but like it made us get up and down off the ground several times a day. You know, that in itself is an exercise.
We could have easily just gotten a smaller table and cut the tables up. It was a full dining table.
Wow, that's so great. And a very interesting question pertains to how do you see the distribution of the movements that you do during the day? Would you say, is it better if a person would say, I would set aside 1 hour time during the day where I'll do all these different movements within that 1 hour time span? Or is it better if I just distribute throughout the whole day just a couple of movements? What would you say would be the better option? Or are they both good? What would you say?
They're both good. We would say distribute throughout the day.
Well, I would say first, whatever works for you.
Yes.
Like, I'd like to say, I'll tell you what I think optimally. But I feel like if you're not doing any movement and just doing it in like what your one window, whether that's the morning or whether that's late at night, works for you, then, you know, you just got to do it. Movement is better than no movement, firstly. So if you're listening and you're not doing anything and you've been putting off movement because you can't get it done at 6 o'clock in the morning, then do it at 7 o'clock at night. Like, that's okay. I don't think it's optimal, but it's better than skipping it completely.
Well, I was just going to say, we've noticed that more people, like, unless you're very, you know, a real doer sort of thing, we can say, this is the way to do it. You do it for half an hour at this time and this, that, like, that they'll thrive on that if you're a real doer. But a lot of people will come to notice they're a bit sporadic when it comes to it. So,
well, if there's too many rules, then the day that you skip it, you'll just throw it all in. So yeah, I think firstly it's good to be a bit flexible. But I personally think moving in the morning is the most helpful because firstly there's just a lot of benefits from morning movement. You're waking up, you're pumping circulation, your lymphatic system, you're waking up the energy in those systems, as well as like if you've got any sort of, you wake up with chronic pain or you've come from sort of a pain background, generally generalized whole body movement will actually help with pain as well. So there's that. And I also think that movement promotes movement. So if you've moved in the morning, you've sort of got that flow happening, you're more likely to be reminded to move more during the day. I kind of think, like when we used to have the studio, people would come and say you had a corporate job, they would sit all day, like forget they even had a body and forget that they would feel like things creeping up. And then they would come and move their body at the end of the day, which is good. But this can also cause problems because it's like your body is just stagnant for a whole day. And then you go like hard and fast into movement at a point. I think generally the more you can move through the day, the better. Obviously, you're going to have your times when you're going to do your strength training, for example, and you need a dedicated like 45 minutes for that. And, you just got to use the window that's going to work for you. Everybody's a little bit different on when they have their most energy. Like for us, we like sort of morning to do our hardest workout. That's just when we feel most energized, but it might be different for you. We're a big fan of movement snacks. So maybe you move in the morning and then throughout the day, you do a couple of minutes or 10 minutes of movement. Maybe at lunchtime you go for a walk. Maybe in the afternoon you do a few stretches. Maybe if that's a training day, that's when you dedicate your 45 minutes to your strength training. So it kind of has to work for you, but I think optimally getting some movement in the first part of the day is very smart because then if the rest of the day is a write-off, you've at least done that. Whereas if you say I'm going to work out at 5 o'clock at night and you have a busy day and you miss it, then you don't have another opportunity.
Or you adjust your environment to promote more movement. I mean, look, now that we work from home, a lot of the times we work on the floor. Like we have, just our laptop propped up on a small table and we're sitting on the floor for the majority of the time when we're doing our laptop work. And we do find that, I'm not sure if you would notice, but like even right now, the way we sit down, we're always kind of moving in different positions.
Yeah.
Because we're putting ourselves in a position where the body doesn't like being in one position the whole time, so it's going to make
always giving you signals that your neck's getting a little bit tight. Do something about that. Unless we're actually checking in with our body through the day. To do that, you actually need to slow down. You need to breathe a little deeper, check in, go, how am I? How does my body feel? Ask those questions to yourself. What does it need right now? And then give it the tool that it needs. Maybe it just needs to get outside and get some fresh air. Maybe you need to actually do some stretches. Maybe you're feeling tired and you need to do some squats to get some energy. There's so many different ways to approach movement. It's definitely not like a one size fits all, but I think generally moving in the morning is better than other parts of the day. And I think moving throughout, just making it a priority to move throughout the day is a good idea.
Okay, perfect. That I think is a very good way to summarize that. While we were speaking about that, I was just picturing like the dangers of having this super comfortable couch at home, because the couch, everyone thinks, hey, that gets so nice and fluffy and it's so comfortable. But then the downside is that you could sit there for 2 hours watching maybe a Netflix movie or just watching any kind of movie, and you wouldn't move your body for 2 hours because you're just so comfortable in this little huge marshmallow couch. But the downside is that you're just not moving your body. And that's why, as you said, now you're sitting on the floor, and when you're working on your laptop and when you're doing things, you're on the floor, and automatically your body will say, hey, I'm already tired on that side of the butt cheek. Could you maybe move over to the other butt cheek? Yeah, or could you move this way? Could you move that way? Yeah. So
and that's what we get. It's exactly the same as what we get sold with the ergonomic chair. You might have back pain, and then you're like, what can I do about my back pain? I'm getting it at work. So you ask the works OT comes in, and he gives you this ergonomic chair that has these armrests, that has got a headrest, that's got extra cushioning, that's, goes up and down or whatever it is. And it's like, well, well, actually, that's just dulling your senses. So you can sit for 8 hours a day in this chair and actually not feel anything until you go home and you're like, why do I have a migraine, or why do I have a, this neck pain? And, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And that's why I think if you don't have all of that support and assistance and cushioning, then at the end, your body will just tell you by itself, hey, move a bit now this way, move a bit that way. So just already intuitively, you're already just moving constantly. And you're, let's say, like that conversation we're having right now, maybe after 1 hour in this conversation, both of you have changed your position like maybe 5 times, 6 times, or maybe more. And if you would be in a very comfortable chair, you would probably only have moved 1 or 2 times. Yeah. But in this case, as we see right now, you have moved multiple times. Yeah. And it's much, much better for your body because you're just constantly changing and adapting to not to be too long in one position. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good. And that wraps up part 1 of my conversation with Ange and Marty from the A-Life. I hope you enjoyed hearing their unique insights on movement, wellness, and how we can all incorporate more mindful movement into our daily lives. There is so much value in understanding how to move well, feel good, and prioritize quality over intensity in our fitness routines. But we're just getting started. Be sure to join us in 2 weeks for part 2, where we will dive even deeper into how Ange and Marty continue to empower others through their movement philosophy, discuss more tips on building a sustainable, active lifestyle, and share even more practical advice you can start applying right away. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone you think could benefit from it. I would love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to reach out and let me know what resonated with you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you back here for part 2 with Ange and Marty from the A-Life. Big hugs, everyone!